As we've already mentioned in our church service today, in a couple of weeks, we will begin the season of Lent. March 6th is Ash Wednesday. The church will come together to worship, to receive the ashes on the forehead, and then we will share a meal. And that will kick off the season where the church will gather, the church will learn together, and the church will share a meal. What I love seeing during those 6 weeks of Lent are how the different groups who provide the food come up with such a vast diversity in what is being brought to the table. Even though during the season of Lent we try to keep it more simple than usual, we do not, however, skip on the sheer abundance of what we're sharing. My friend's family has a wonderful saying that I love. They say, "We know we have enough because we have more than enough." These are excellent words to live by. One thing that we are terrific at as a church is serving meals. I love that we have no concern that there will be too much food because we have this system of sharing with one another. And if there's some left over, we just go to the storage room and we grab the extra jars and lids or maybe the clamshells and we divvy it up and we send it home and we share and we trade our food with one another. We make sure that all are fed to satisfaction, that everything is distributed and shared, and that nothing goes to waste, not at this church. Furthermore, I admire how there are several of you in this congregation that when I've broken bread with you at a table at a restaurant, you come prepared with some of your own takeaway containers. I think that's wonderful because we know restaurants, their servings are so generous that it might be too much to eat at one time. And while the server is happy to go get some carry-out containers, that usually involves the use of styrofoam to put your food in. And that's not good for the environment. And so it's really neat when we're out together, when I see you whip out of your bag your own Tupperware or your reusable containers. I think that's a great way not to waste food while also being responsible to the environment. I love the fact that you take home that food and you'll eat it later as leftovers. We don't know what the disciples did with all that leftover bread and fish, but we know how much they had left over. We're told that it's 12 baskets of food after all those men, women, and children were fed. We really can't blame the disciples for their concern for the people. When Jesus instructs them to feed the people, I don't really hear that as a chastisement. You feed the people. They are aware that the place that they're in is quite deserted. There's no Family Dollar or Dollar General that they can just run to and grab a few items. They have little to offer and they have no place to go get more food. It reminds me once again, I know that I've shared this story with you on Ann Fuller as she shared it with me, but she was making her sorbet for the ice cream supper as well as her mother's birthday cake that they were going to celebrate the next day. And she thought she had all the ingredients and she was working late into the night on Saturday night, only to realize that she had purchased enough condensed sweetened milk for the cake and the sorbet, but not for the icing of the cake. How many of you have been busy in your kitchen late into the night only to realize that you did not have all the ingredients that you needed? So what did she ask Bob to do? She asked Bob to run all the way to Paris to the 24-hour Walmart at 10:30 p.m. That, my friends, is a story of needing something when you're in a deserted place. Not that North Middletown is exactly deserted, but as far as food items go, especially fresh foods, we kind of are in a food desert. And not only that, but Bob, I think that's an excellent way to keep your marriage going after so many years. Just, yes, ma'am, and off to Paris for that. So at any rate, the disciples are aware that they're kind of stuck and there's nothing that can be done. And so they think the most logical thing in the world would be to send people to the next village. In essence, they were trying to hurry them off to Paris to get to the Walmart so they could find something that they could eat. Now we will remember that Jesus has gone to a deserted place for a reason. Bob let us know that in the preceding verses that he is grieving. He's grieving the loss of his cousin, John the Baptist, who had just been killed by King Herod. Perhaps Jesus just needs some time in the quiet to think about all that has gone on. Maybe because of this death, as death tends to do to all of us, it makes us think of our own death that is coming. And I think Jesus is doing the spiritually responsible thing. He knows that he needs to be away from people and away from the responsibilities of his ministry. He needed to recharge his batteries. Perhaps he cried, and I'm sure that he talked to God. But the people, they just keep following him. He was so amazing, and he did such wonderful things, and he said such amazing things that the people were drawn to him, and they couldn't keep away, no badly how much he needed to be by himself. And so it is likely that the disciples were not only concerned for the people who were following, but they were concerned for their teacher, their rabbi, their friend. And so they were trying to manage the situation. Send them away. Just go ahead and let them get something to eat. Jesus, we can pick this up tomorrow, right where we've left off. Now is just not a good time. Besides, all we have are 5 loaves and 2 fish. That would barely make a dent in this huge crowd of people. We're told that it was 5,000. I don't know who had the job of counting heads that day. Maybe the disciples had their own Billy Rainey who sat there and kept track of attendance. But that was just the men they were counting, or probably estimating. They didn't count the women and the children. The women and the children count in the kingdom of God, but they didn't quite make the cut in this situation. So we don't know if Jesus was exasperated, exhausted, or if he was just emotionally spent. But we can imagine how he must have felt, because we know how it feels to be that way. And so he turns it around, and he tells the disciples, quit trying to manage me and the crowds. You give them something to eat. He might have felt that it was time to start transferring some of this power from himself and empowering them for the ministry. He knew it would have to occur in his absence. And so you will remember in all of these healing stories, be it leprosy or the woman who is bleeding or blindness, no matter what Jesus healed, he asked for the humans to participate. And there's a pattern that they called him Lord, that they repented, and very often they went to the priest to be shown that they had been made clean, and therefore they could be restored into community. In this story, Jesus requires the disciples to be the one to participate in the ministry. And I want us to notice that while Jesus could have only done spiritual things, he cared about our bodies. It was not enough just to tell people spiritual things, to enliven them, to get them to the next day so that they would just endure through this life. What kind of Savior would that be who would leave us with bodily suffering? And so he addressed both. If people needed healing, he healed them. If they needed to be made clean, he did that. And if they needed to be alleviated from the pangs of hunger, he fed this. And when he tells his disciples to feed the people, I want you to notice what happens in the text. The conversation changes just a little bit from, well, we just have this small amount, to look at all we have. Look at all who are fed. And there were 12 baskets left over. It goes from scarcity to abundance in just a few sentences. And it reminds me of the church and various organizations that we deal with. How often do we choose to deal with scarcity? If we had a nickel for every time followers of Christ made an excuse not to do ministry because we thought we didn't have enough, think of all the money we would have. And you can fill in the blanks. I want you to do this exercise in your head, if not out loud. We could do such amazing things around here if only we had enough blank. Are you filling in the blank? I bet some of us would say the same thing, that there might be a diversity of answers. I wonder what it would be. Would it be money? If only we had more children and young families. We tend to say that a lot. If only we just had more people in the town, more people in the pews, more people who are interested in coming to church. And I wonder if Jesus overheard us talking like the disciples, what he would say to empower us. To say, oh, my church, you feed them. He doesn't say, well, wait till more families arrive, or launch a new ministry program that you can advertise in the paper, and then they'll come, and then you can do this thing that I'm requiring you to do. He doesn't say, you have to wait until you have much, or you're just a little church, so I'll give you a pass. We heard just last week that a quote-unquote little church here in Little North Middletown can do a whole lot. We have fed the masses. Think about all those who go to Operation Food Basket for supplemental assistance. We had it reported to us that our outreach this past year, the calendar year of 2018, we far exceeded our budgeted amount of $7,000. We added an additional $5,000 more in above and beyond donations. So let's not fall into the trap that we can't do too much because we are too small. That, my friends, is doubt. I heard an excellent speaker say, how dare you not start doing what you are called to do today? You have no idea how much time you have here on earth. Get started. Do something. Just one thing, and do it now. If you wait until all the things fall into place, until you have everything that you think you need, that day might not come. If you wait until you have the right job, the right amount in the bank account, or if you wait until the kids are grown and out of the house, you might have squandered the time that Jesus gave you to be empowered in ministry. And I want us to think about those who have gone before us, either the members of the church, those saints that we uphold, members in our family, members in our very own community. And I wonder what they would say to us when we fall into that trap of small thinking. When I hear people start to say those things, I think about what they might say to us and how they might give anything to be back here among us, to enjoy another beautiful day on this planet, enjoying their families, their friends, their churches, their grandchildren, and how those of us who are here squander the time that we have. That's not a very good model of stewardship, is it? When all we do is pine for the good old days or wish for better days ahead, we're wasting the present moment. Oddly enough, that's all we ever have promised to us, is this moment in time. And so when we do that, when we focus on the past, or we are focused on the future, we might as well be saying like those disciples, send them away. We don't have all that we need right now. And I politely beg to differ. We have exactly what we need when we need it. My faith points points me in that direction, to always believe that. And it's funny that when you believe that, you tend to experience it. Whether it be feeding the masses with baskets of leftovers or daily manna in the wilderness, Jesus, at one point, allows them to collect leftovers. And in the other story, the manna in the wilderness, he tells them not to, that they have to wait for the next day for their allotment of food. And both of those activities build our trust and reliance on God. At either junction, we are called to trust that what we have is what we need, and it is divinely provided. But in all situations, we are called to participate in being part of our own blessings. We will be blessed to satisfaction and beyond, and others will be too. Let us not be so amazed by the miracles that God does through Jesus Christ that we fail to see that in each circumstance, a human is called to participate in that great drama. We can't claim to understand how miracles occur. We only know that they take place after Jesus employs disciples to work in the midst of people's food, to get involved in their situations, to meet them where we are. It happens when food is blessed and broken and distributed by humans to other humans. It would be very easy just to file this story away and say, well, that's just a divine miracle. And it is. It is a divine miracle. But let us not forget the harder implications of this story, the ones that affect us in our lives right here today. And that is, we are called to get involved in service to humankind. We have no idea the miracles that we might be a part of when we accept our invitation to get involved in the lives of other humans, to show them compassion. And then God will give us somehow, miraculously, whatever we need. And it will be blessed, and it will be multiplied, and it will be distributed, and the blessings will bestow upon the masses of God's people. But Jesus tells us, you give them something to eat. Will we respond to Jesus' invitation? Because he requires that of us. Thanks be to God.